Everybody, so New York City's budget grabbing some headlines, but it's the state's budget that is now more than a week past due. One of the major hurdles, raising taxes on the rich. So let's talk about it. I'm sitting down with State Assemblymember Micah Asher to discuss the holdup here as he now eyes a seat in Congress running in the 12th district. He is going on the record. Assemblyman, great to have you here on Picks and Politics. Good to see you.
Great to be with you.
We'll get to your run for Congress in just a second, but I do want to begin right now with the budget because it is a week past due, and they just filed another extension, not unheard of. Spoke to Michael Janaris, who said, well, we'll keep holding it up until we get what we want. What is it that you want?
Well, I think there are a number of important policy questions that have been put on the table related to climate change, related to immigration, how we protect our immigrant neighbors, and then there's the overall fiscal dynamic. And these are complicated questions, and the legislative leadership and legislators and the governor are going to work to resolve them over the weeks ahead.
Yeah, you know, a big sticking point, a big topic right now is raising taxes on the wealthy. I just talked to our Henry Rossoff, and we were showing this polling, which an overwhelming amount of New Yorkers are in favor of taxing the wealthy. It sounds like the mayor was able to convince the Assembly and Senate to be on board with it. The governor has told me many times on this very show, no. Where do you stand on the issue of raising taxes?
I think the most important thing is that we make sure the budget is not balanced on the backs of working New Yorkers. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also important to remember that one of the challenges, the most significant challenges we face, is that the federal government is doing enormous fiscal damage to New York by cutting safety net programs, by cutting health care, by cutting SNAP. And so we at the state and city level are faced with the question of how we take care of New Yorkers. And I think it's critically important that we do that in a fair and progressive way.
Okay, but does that mean taxing the wealthy? If it comes to a vote, are you a yes vote or a no vote on taxing the wealthy?
I think the first question is, what are the needs that we face? And how do we meet them? I've got a bill, for example, that would change the way we calculate the corporate franchise tax for the biggest corporations to make sure they can't hide profits overseas. That would generate $800 million a year. So I think there are a lot of innovative ways that we can make sure that we meet the needs of New York without balancing the budget on the backs of working class New Yorkers.
I hear you. I'm going to try again because it sounds like you're skirting the actual question of if it comes to a vote on taxing millionaires, right, raising the tax, which the mayor has said he wants to do. And yes, there are other ways to raise revenue, but that is one of them. Is it a yes or no?
I appreciate the effort, but I think the reality is budgets are really complicated negotiations. There are a lot of dials, and rarely is it a binary question of yes or no. It's what are the needs we want to prioritize? Yeah. How do we pay for them? Are we doing it in a fair way? I will vote no on a budget that does not fund our needs in an unfair way.
Okay, let's talk about your big fight right now to win over Capitol Hill, because you are running for Congress right now in a very crowded race in New York 12. You know, you're replacing Jerry Nadler as he retires, and for those who don't know, he's been in government since the 70s, so it's really a seat that hasn't seen change in decades here. You also worked in his office, so you have close ties to him, and people kind of said you were going to be the anointed one to take over for him. How would you differ from Jerry Nadler?
Well, nobody should think of themselves as anointed in a seat like this, where you've got incredibly smart voters who have a lot of choices in this race, and I'm putting my candidacy before them. I think what I am running on is a record of using legislative power to fight back against Donald Trump and his administration on behalf of New Yorkers. That is the question on the table for this congressional race, and it's what I've done every day in the state assembly on public health, on immigration, on protecting New York from cuts at the federal level. That's what I've been doing. That's what we need the congressman in this district to do.
So fighting against Donald Trump, of course, is one of the issues, and that's kind of what all the candidates are saying in this race that are Democrats. What is the one big issue facing the district that you would want to tackle on day one?
Well, I think that we need to make sure that our immigrant neighbors are protected from the ravages of ICE that have been terrorizing communities. And I think at the federal level, we need to abolish ICE, pass comprehensive immigration reform. That's a significant issue. Housing costs are a huge issue in this district. We have enormously high costs of housing. It makes New York an incredibly difficult and expensive place to live. I think the federal government can do a lot more to build affordable housing, relieve pressure on the housing market, make New York and make the 12th district a more affordable place to live.
Yeah, I mean, affordability is a huge issue, but you mentioned ICE, and just this week, Mark Wayne Mullen said that he wanted to get rid of customs for cities that have airports that are sanctuary cities, and it would kind of create this big mess for folks who were trying to come internationally. What did you think of that idea? Did you hear about it?
Well, I think, yes, I did. I think it is reflective of an administration that is hell-bent on a reactionary agenda and willing to do enormous damage to Americans and our cities and our states that aren't on board with their agenda. And I think that is exactly why we need to fight like hell in Congress.
It's a very crowded race, and there are some big names in the race. Jack Schlossberg, George Conway, Alex Borez would be the three top names right now against you. What do you think right now of the field and the candidates who are out there campaigning?
I think it's a broad field. Again, I think it's great that the voters of this district have a lot of choices. I think that there's no one in the race that has the record of making change through the legislative process that I do. As you said, we're all talking about how much damage Trump is doing. But the question is, how do you use legislative power to stop that damage?
Would you want to impeach him?
I would support an impeachment process. I think the reality is we're not going to remove him from office because of the Senate. And so we're going to need to find other tools. And I think there are a lot of tools that Democrats, even in the minority and certainly in the majority, can use to slow and stall the Trump-Mike Johnson agenda.
Yeah, we're coming to an end here, and I'm going to give everybody equal time. But I want to ask your thoughts about the Democratic Party overall. And if you were to win this seat and the Democrats were to regain control, who do you see as the leader of the party?
Well, I think that there are real questions about who's going to emerge as our presidential nominee, and I think eventually whoever that person is going to be the functional leader.
But is Hakeem Jeffries the House
Democratic?
Speaker?
Well, Hakeem Jeffries will be the House Democratic leader, and I think that what's really important is that we give space for new voices in the party who are more aggressive, more strategic, more willing to use the tools we have to be a fighting force. That's very much what I want to do in Congress.
All right, Micah Asher, great to have you here.
Great to be here.
And thank you. We are going to be doing a debate for this very race, and you have committed to that stage, so it's going to be great to see you on the debate stage as well.